Is the Mahdi a minor sign or a major sign?
There's lots of myth within the imagination of the Ummah about Al-Mahdi. And the hadith tells us that he doesn't become a Khalifa right away. We need as an Ummah to understand, waiting for the Mahdi, let's wait until he comes. Astaghfirullah al-Azim, it is wrong in every sense.
How does this man gain all the support and become the Khalifa?
Again, when we say establish an army first, this is a wrong imagination. Totally wrong imagination.
So even if you don't witness the end of times.
We're living the end of times. We're living the end of times now.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. We are back on the Islamically Correct show. Again, we don't care to be politically correct because we're aiming to be Islamically correct. We're back with Sheikh. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. How you doing?
Assalamu alaikum.
All right. So last time we spoke about the Mahdi. We're going to jump right back into the topic. Sheikh, you actually said something that was it kind of caught my attention, which was that he might be alive today, right? Probably is alive today.
Yeah, many scholars say that, yeah, it's true.
Yeah. Because when you said he's going to come in a time of chaos, in a time of division, doesn't that it seems to fit our time today? Would you say then we're in the end of times?
It has nothing to do with the Mahdi, but being in the end of times has its own signs. It has to do with basically the minor signs and some of the events that happens.
Okay.
I think we've been in the end of times for a long time now.
For a while. So I actually want to know, is the Mahdi a minor sign or a major sign?
I would say the Mahdi alayhi salam is kind of like, you can say either the first major sign, and some scholars don't count him as a major sign, or like one of those transitionary periods. Because see, how do we know that he is actually Al-Mahdi? The main thing is Isa alayhi salam coming down. So you would know he's the Mahdi when Isa comes in. That's why really he's not necessarily a major sign, but some scholars do count him as a major sign.
So Isa is a major sign.
Definitely, without doubt.
Okay.
The return of Isa 100% is one of the major signs of Yawm al-Qiyamah.
So regardless if it's a minor or major, it's the transition period to the major signs.
No. It's like, again, he is definitely with the major signs era.
Okay.
Because during his time, Isa alayhi salam comes in, and like recognizing him being Al-Mahdi is when Isa comes down. So he is definitely part of the time of the major sign.
Okay, got it.
He cannot be a minor sign.
Got it. So when you say that, we've been in the end of times for a while, did it start with the Prophet ﷺ passing away? Because I if I'm not mistaken, that was a huge calamity. Would that be a major sign as well?
So let's define what's a major and minor, right? Like a minor sign is a sign that happens way before the end of times, earlier enough from the first major sign.
Okay.
Now, the majority of the minor signs happen closer to the end of times, and within the end of times, just before the first major sign. And as we said, the first major sign really is the establishment of the Khilafah again, inshallah, and the guided Khilafah, another Khilafah Rashida.
Okay.
Like the Muslims need to understand that we are literally, inshallah ta'ala, just right before a new Khilafah Rashida comes back to the world. One of the Khulafa of this new Khilafah Rashida will be Al-Mahdi alayhi salam, and within his rule, Isa alayhi salam will come down again, which is definitely the first major sign. So all the signs of Yawm al-Qiyamah that are prophesied in the ahadith that are before Al-Mahdi alayhi salam are considered minor sign. Now the first one, you can say, being the death of the Rasul sallallahu alayhi wa sallam.
Okay, got it.
And there's tens and tens of them. The majority are at the end of times, which we're living in right now.
They happen closer to the Mahdi, basically.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Most of them have been done. The reason many scholars believe that the Mahdi, or this Hijri century, is the century where the Mahdi alayhi salam will be the Mujaddid, and he will basically appear at the end of the century, which is around 50 years from today, is because most of the minor signs have appeared, basically.
I'd love to actually unpack that, maybe on another episode. So speaking of the Mahdi, how does this man gain all the support and become the Khalifa?
So look, there's lots of myth within the imagination of the Ummah about Al-Mahdi. Again, sadly, the Shia basically draw him as if he's this like perfectly looking person and this and that. He looks a little bit more Persian, I guess, from their perspective. But aside from that, even the Ahl Sunnah, they have this supernatural things. And Mahdi is just a guy. He's just a man. So for him to basically get to a leadership, he needs to basically gain the support with the Ummah just like anybody else does. Like let's take a non-Muslim as a person, just so we can understand, has nothing to do with Islam. Because the social phenomena we live in are the same for Muslims and non-Muslims. Like if you want to build a building, if you're a Muslim or a non-Muslim, doesn't matter. So you're not going to have less concrete if you're a Muslim. And it'll be stronger or something like that. There's no supernatural powers.
There are steps you have to follow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like even the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when he was sent, he was just a man. But he's a prophet. He's a prophet and messenger. Like he didn't get like special powers to change society. He had to struggle through it as a regular man. And the reason is so he can become an example for us non-prophets.
So you're saying like basically he didn't change the world by himself.
So the Rasul didn't change the world by himself. The Rasul basically came in, organized the Sahaba in a movement. This political movement basically started in Quraysh. It failed to convince the leaders of Quraysh. So the Rasul, as the leader of this movement, started basically looking outside Quraysh, and they started visiting the different tribes and speaking to the different leaders. And many basically kind of like, closed the door in his face, and a couple of them responded positively, and there was negotiations that ended up failing until the negotiation within the city of Yathrib with two different tribes actually. Al-Aws wal Khazraj, who were always in constant fighting, they both gave allegiance to the Rasul and invited him over to build the Islamic system in that city, which was later called Al-Madinah Al-Munawwarah. You see what I'm saying? There's principles and usul for the work.
Right, a process, yeah.
And again, in our memories, everything become mystique. Everything become mystical, right? Like it's nothing mystical about Mahdi. Mahdi is just a person who has to work just like the Rasul did, galvanize the ummah, creates a movement in the ummah. This movement becomes stronger. This movement basically inspires the ummah and gains its trust, and then bit by bit gets to the leadership of the ummah, bit by bit, bit by bit, bit by bit. And the hadith tells us that he doesn't become a khalifa right away. There's many hadith that says basically that he does not become the khalifa right away. He becomes a khalifa after the khilafah was established. So it seems basically he galvanized enough people in the ummah, and there's maybe other people who are more experienced, a little bit older maybe, who become the khulafa first.
Okay.
Even though he helps in getting them aligned and getting them to move in the right direction. Because again, the reason he gained the name Al-Mahdi, because he guides the ummah in the right path forward.
Right. Okay. This sounds like Salahuddin, like how he wasn't the leader first. It was Imaduddin Zangi and Nuruddin Zangi.
Exactly.
And then he worked his way up, but he was still an important figure.
Exactly. And he became the leader at the end. Yeah.
Right. So how does this look for Al-Mahdi? Because for the Prophet ﷺ, it was a peaceful shift of power. There was no armies prior to the establishment of the deen, the system of Islam, in society. For Al-Mahdi, there's the hadith of the black flags from Khurasan. So does he establish an army first and then go there, or like? Again,
when we say establish an army first, this is a wrong imagination. Totally wrong imagination.
Why is that?
Nobody establishes armies. This is the problem. Again, this is seriously that, subhanAllah. Even the Rasul did not establish an army. Let's go back to the Rasul before we shift back to the Mahdi.
Okay.
Did the Rasul establish an army? No. The Rasul basically gained the trust of an already established city-state called Yathrib. Okay? Yathrib was a city-state, or you can say there's two city-states almost, kind of like in a loose alliance. The Aws wal Khazraj were in a loose alliance. Okay, it's kind of like
different tribes.
Yeah, the two tribes.
Yeah.
Al-Aws wal Khazraj. So they were kind of like basically, you know how in the United States there's multiple states, they came together to create the union.
Yeah.
So Yathrib was like that. There was basically the city-state of the Khazraj and the city-state of Al-Aws.
Okay.
They together made the union of the city-states of Yathrib. Do you see what I'm saying? So Rasulullah did not build an army. He actually convinced them to basically become Muslim. So that ready city-state became Muslim. So the Rasulullah migrated to this already established, maybe for hundreds of years, this city-state called Yathrib. And that became the homeland of Islam. So Al-Mahdi, in a similar manner, this is what he's going to do. There's no person, like today the world is already covered. There's a couple hundred countries in the whole planet, and that's it. There's 57 Muslim majority countries. So the Mahdi needs to work within this ecosystem, right? This political ecosystem. The Mahdi will help the Ummah to realize, help the leaders of the Muslim world. And that's why really we speak to the leaders of the Muslim world. I know some of them are, right now, they act in a bad way and so forth. But many of them have an excuse that, look, they don't know what to do and they're under pressure. They're under severe pressure. But anyway, at the end of the day, the Mahdi will be able to convince some of them to take care of the cause of Islam. And then he'll migrate and he'll be within that nation state that becomes a homeland for Islam.
Okay.
I'll give you a real example in today's world, right? That did not materialize to become a real homeland for Islam. The Muslims in the Indian subcontinent, okay? 1947, if I'm not mistaken. There's the partition that happened. So lots of Muslims immigrated from current-day India into what is known as Bangladesh and Pakistan today. The word Pakistan means basically the land of the pure. They immigrated because now that country, which had its own military, own institution, own governance, own parliament, and so forth, it became the homeland of these Muslims.
Okay.
You see what I'm saying? So in a similar fashion, a partition doesn't necessarily have to happen. But I'm just saying, basically, there's already nation states that the Muslims are super majorities in.
So if I got it right, then what you're saying is the Mahdi, just like the Prophet ﷺ did, is not going to create armies out of thin air.
No, no.
They are going to join or be a part of a system that's already created.
Exactly.
And then that system will have its own armies.
Yeah.
Okay, I get it.
It's a political figure. He will be a political figure that mobilizes the ummah. Let me give you now a non-Islamic example. So Nelson Mandela, he was a political activist, political figure, rallied and protested and politically was active against the apartheid regime in South Africa until basically been able to influence the people in power and influence and society changed and he became the president of South Africa. So just like that, just understand that the Mahdi will walk in similar steps to any political figure in history, Muslim or not, prophet or not, who works for political change. And we can speak about other revolutions, whether the Bolshevik Revolution or the American Revolution or the French Revolution. There's political leaders in society that there's certain phenomena and certain rules for social change that some charismatic political leaders basically would follow to get to change, political change. You see what I'm saying? Like this whole myth in the imagination of the Ummah that basically people can build countries or build militaries or build armies. And this is nonsense. This is nonsense. We're living in a world where the countries are made up of tens and hundreds, sometimes hundreds of millions of people. There's no such thing as like one person. Like even at the time of the Rasul when these nation states were just made up of between 10 to 20,000 people, did the Rasul basically leave Quraysh, go to somewhere in the desert? There's a million places in the desert, for example. Today, the whole planet is occupied. I'm just saying, at his time, there was lots of free land in the desert. Did he take the Sahaba and say, okay, now this is the state of Islam?
Right, he didn't.
But why didn't he do that? Not many people ask this question. Why didn't the Rasul do that? Because individuals cannot build a country. A country must be already built with lots of resources from a social, societal perspective. Yathrib was maybe around 10,000 people, 15,000 people, whatever the number was.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say around 10,000. Quraysh was around 25,000 people. So, you understand?
Mm-hmm.
So, it's not like the Rasul goes and let's reproduce until we get to 25,000 or to 10,000. He had only 100 people with him, 150 people with him, 200 people with him. That's it.
Yeah, so that's not the method. The method is to, already go to legitimate systems and do
through the conviction, through peaceful political discourse.
Yes.
Through peaceful political discourse, you change the hearts and minds of societies and the elites in these societies.
I totally understand what you say about the American Revolution and all those revolutions. I mean, in comparison wise, they were a little bloody. Some of them were a little bloody, so maybe not the best comparison from that perspective.
Because our example is Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam.
And that was never bloody.
No, not only that, it is haram to basically slap a person in the face.
Oh.
From an Islamic perspective, we only have our tongue and pen to basically propagate the idea of Islam. And the idea of establishing a system that basically rules with the justice and the peace of Islam.
Alhamdulillah, alhamdulillah. So then if we go back to the black flags from Khurasan, what's going on there? How do they go from there to, they're heading to Palestine, right?
Yeah, so there's a couple of hadith about that. So one hadith, the Rasul says, إِذَا رَأَيْتُمُ الرَّايَاتُ السُّودِ تَخْرُجُ مِنْ خُرَاسَانَ فَأْتُوهَا فَإِنَّ فِيهَا خَلِيفَةَ اللَّهِ الْمَهْدِيِّ. That if you see the black flags coming from Khurasan, then make sure that you honor it and support it, let's say, and join it and so forth, because the Mahdi is within it.
Mm-hmm.
You see what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
But again, what we need to understand, this is people, there's lots of media that you can say brainwashed our ummah. People think basically if anybody who has a black flag, this is what the hadith is talking about. Astaghfirullah.
Yeah.
It has to basically be a legitimate army of one of the countries of the world. Otherwise, trust me, any type of militia, it is not that, and it is haram to even support them, period.
Okay.
So this is speaking about basically when the Khilafah is established, not before. So no armies are used to establish Khilafah. Khilafah gets established. It seems basically those who establish Khilafah, they choose the flag of the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam. The flags of the Rasul were many. Okay, the most popular ones basically were the white and the black. Also, Rasul had a yellow flag and a red flag too. So all of them had La ilaha Muhammad Rasulullah. Okay. So that's what it is. So it seems again, the people at the time of the Mahdi will choose maybe a black one for the flag of their new state. That being said, the ulama say that this hadith, when the Rasul said that the Mahdi is within them, it's an evidence that the Mahdi was not the Khalifa. So he's part of that army, but he's not. Maybe he could be a general, could be like an officer.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
So that's one thing he's saying within them. He didn't say basically the Emir of this army or the Khalifa was the Mahdi. Actually, he says the Mahdi is with them.
Okay.
So that shows us that basically the Mahdi is not the first Khalifa, by the way. At least this is one of the evidences the ulama say basically is not. There's other evidences, by the way. And one of the popular ones, the hadith of the bay'ah of the Mahdi. Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam in hadith that was narrated by Abu Dawood says, يُبَايَعُ بَيْنَ الرُّكْنِ وَالْمَقَامِ. In the haram in Mecca, the Mahdi gets given bay'ah. And this is at the time of, you can say almost like I don't want to say a fight, but there's like, you can say a political tension. I would say political tension between three children of khulafa. I don't know if they could be brothers, not brothers, but this one shows very clearly that there was khulafa before al-Mahdi, and the children of these khulafa, they basically get into some political tension because each of them wants to be the khalifa and so forth. And then the ummah decides to sideline them and give bay'ah to the Mahdi himself. That's when the Mahdi becomes the khalifa.
I want to understand. So what happened first? Like, was the bay'ah given first, then he goes to Khurasan, and then the army then comes back, or goes to Palestine?
No, the bay'ah is way after.
Okay.
So as we said, the Mahdi is a political figure. He will mobilize the ummah to establish the deen of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And it seems he would not be the first leader of this new, let's say, era in the ummah. There'll be other khulafa who are good people who I'm pretty sure they're working together. And he is one of, let's say, he's in the administration of this new state.
And that state is a rightly guided state?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay, so the state is established, and then later on, that's when there's the fighting between the three khalifas.
Don't forget, because now there's three children of the khulafa. If we assume this one child for each khalifa, let's say, you're speaking about three different khulafa before al-Mahdi. If each person, let's say, stays for, let's say, 8 years, that's 24 years.
Or it could be three children of the same khalifa, right?
So the hadith doesn't specify, even though it might seem they all are the children of one khalifa.
Okay.
It says, كلهم ابن khalifa. All the three of those who are struggling for becoming the leader of the ummah are children of a khalifa. Could be the same, could be different, but they could be.
Okay.
We cannot, definitely could be all of the three of them are three children of one khalifa that is there before the Mahdi.
Okay.
And the Mahdi gets given bay'ah while he's disliking it. Yeah, so he's forced to take it basically. So it seems like it reminds me of the time of Ali bin Abi Talib, because he was also given bay'ah while he didn't like it, he didn't want it, because it was times of turmoil. Things did not really stabilize, and so the ummah is going to go through lots of bumps until subhanAllah gets to al-Mahdi and he fixes the things, inshaAllah ta'ala. Some hadith says basically the flags of Khurasan come in to give the bay'ah to al-Mahdi.
Oh, okay.
Because there's one hadith that says basically يخرج المهدي من المشرق, meaning basically from the east. Now the east in these hadith means Asham. You see this khuruj, the word kharaja, it means basically al-dhuhur, to basically he becomes claimed, like becomes known. And don't forget, because he's there, like even the other hadith that we just spoke about, he's there in that army, but he's not known. So al-khuruj basically when he becomes known. Maybe when he gets given bay'ah and he becomes a khalifa, people recognize, okay, this guy is the Mahdi actually, after the bay'ah gets done. And it seems basically the capital will be in Sham, in the Levant. And specifically might be Jerusalem itself, basically.
Okay, so I'm assuming this hadith is, when it says khulafa fighting, I'm assuming they're just not rightly guided khulafa. Is that correct?
Don't forget, it's not khulafa. They're the children of a khalifa who died, one or more.
Oh, so they're just beefing.
So they're candidates, basically. I guess they nominated themselves, it seems. But they get sidelined, don't forget.
Okay, so if the Mahdi is going to be the one that is selected, is given bay'ah, the Pledge of Allegiance, chosen by the people in Mecca, right? When there's this turmoil happening and there's three sons of caliphs that are fighting, it seems to me the grab for power always leads to conflict. It's going to always create division and be chaotic. And he's the one who comes and unites the people. He's the one that people choose, right? So shouldn't we just be waiting for him to...
Definitely not.
Why is that?
Because don't forget, the Ummah already have established Khilafah, and there was a Khalifa Rashid. Don't forget, there's a guided Khilafah. And that means basically that the heads of the state are very pious people like the Sahaba radiallahu anhum. There's at least one of them before al-Mahdi, if not more. You know what I'm saying?
But the Mahdi is the one who helped build that state. So either way, his contribution and his involvement...
Yeah, but see, don't forget, he's not known. Like, there's nothing, like nobody knows. He's just a guy. Right? Nobody recognizes him. And see, he will be recognized after he becomes a Khalifa, which is after many things have been done in the Ummah.
That's very interesting.
Yeah, so you need to understand the Ummah will work within its just general...
As if he's not
masses.
there.
As if he's not there, basically. Yeah. It will work to develop the consciousness about unity. It'll develop the public opinion for unity. It's going to develop the conviction within the leaders of the Ummah worldwide
to work
about unity, about Khilafah and so forth. And then, alhamdulillah, hopefully, inshallah, a few countries will join together to make it something like that. And then after that, basically, there'll be, lots of things happen. And after maybe the death of one or more leaders, there'll be some turmoil again. And this turmoil basically will end in the giving bay'ah of the Mahdi. Probably he's going to be old. And that's why he will only rule for between 7 to 9 years. Some say after Isa comes back, alayhi salam. So as you can see, 7 to 9 years of al-Mahdi is not much. He'd be a very old person, especially in today's innovations in health. People might live till, let's say, 100 years. So he might be in his, let's say, 70s or 80s and rule only for 7 to 9 years. And that's really it. So what you need to understand is that most of the stuff happens, most of the successes and the unification of the Ummah will happen way before he becomes a leader, becomes the leader. He'll be one of the leaders, basically, with loss of the Ummah, but nobody's going to know me. Like for him, the Ummah is going to just fulan, this person.
And he's not even going to know.
He might, definitely. Yeah.
A couple of questions that come to mind, because you mentioned Isa alayhi salam. I know it's a little bit of a tangent, but just out of curiosity. Will Isa take his place after? Is he going to lead as well?
Most probably, yes.
Oh,
yes, definitely.
But he's following still the Sharia of the Prophet alayhi salam? He's still under.
Oh, definitely, without doubt.
I'd love to unpack Isa and then Dajjal and all that on another episode.
Definitely. Maybe one thing before you ask the question is that we need, as an ummah, to understand, we're waiting for the Mahdi. Let's wait until he comes. Astaghfirullah al-Azim. It is wrong in every sense. It is wrong from a aqidah perspective. It's wrong from a fiqh perspective. It's wrong from a prophecy perspective based upon these ahadith. And it's wrong from a even aqli perspective. It's the rational mind.
Yeah.
Subhanallah.
Those are good points. We definitely want to be a part of the solution and work instead of just being idle and waiting. I don't think that benefits the ummah much. And may Allah allow us all to be a part of that. So on the topic of working for change then, one hadith comes to mind of the Prophet ﷺ that gave direction on what to do in a time where there is no united body of Muslimin, of the ummah. There is no one leader, right?
It's hadith Hudayf ibn Yaman.
Okay, yes. Mm-hmm. So at the end of the hadith, the Prophet ﷺ says, in that time, you should go, basically isolate yourself and hold on to the roots of a tree or bite to the roots of a tree if you have to.
Yeah.
Right? Until you die. So that, you don't get called to the callers of the hellfire, right?
This is one of the most misunderstood hadith. And I think basically some people, for some reason, on purpose, keep spreading this misconception about it, even though linguistically it's very clear. The Rasul ﷺ is only saying this whole biting on the root of a tree as a figurative speech within a specific situation, which the hadith describes very clearly. And the situation is having no khalifa, having no khilafah, right? So it's a time of occupation. Because if we lost our khilafah, it's basically a time of occupation. And all what you find around you are callers to the gates of hellfire. When you as a Muslim individual, and was there such a time? Yes. When? During the, let's say, early 1900s, when Abdul Hamid rahimahullah was basically ousted.
The Khalifa at the time.
Yeah, Khalifa Abdul Hamid rahimahullah, ousted in 1909.
Okay.
And the Uthmani state was really dismantled when the liberal Young Turks took over, and definitely fully dismantled it in 1921. It became a secular, liberal Turkish nation state.
Okay.
Yeah. So now, and by the way, even basically other areas in the Ummah where basically it fell under colonialism. So what do you do when all what's around you are callers to the gates of hellfire? Meaning basically groups and organizations that are, say, liberal and socialist and Marxist and atheistic and materialist and Scientology and so forth. When you only find these people around you, what do? The Rasulullah says, if you only find this stuff, callers for the gates of hellfire, and definitely there's no reference point, there's no khilafah, and there's no... See, if there was a khilafah, he would tell you immigrate. If there's a khilafah and a khalifa, immigrate.
Right.
But if there isn't, and all what you see around you is callers to the gates of hellfire, what do? He says, don't join any of them, اعتزلهم. Isolate yourself from all of these, and then even if you have to, this is where the figurative speech comes in, even if you have to bite on a root of a tree and die on that state, you stay like that. Meaning never come close to the callers to the gates of hellfire.
Okay.
But if there are basically Islamic movements, good Islamic movements that are upon the Quran and Sunnah, and they're working peacefully and politically on the hadi of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, on the guidance of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, according to the methodology of social change of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, you must be part of that. It has nothing to do with the hadith. This is understood. We never in Islam take one hadith in isolation. You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Because there's million other ahadith or hundreds of ahadith and tens of ayat that speaks about ordering good and forbidding evil and working together, putting our hands together, yadullahi ma'al jama'ah, to rectify the affairs of the Muslimin. So you cannot take this hadith, which is specifically telling you isolate yourself from the callers to the gates of hellfire to mean basically isolate yourself from any organized work. This is, by the way, this is wrong Islamically, this is wrong linguistically, and this is wrong in every aspect of istidlal, of evidence-based thinking.
Okay, but this doesn't call to, so that the hadith itself is not speaking of many groups that are like movements or working towards, establishing Islam. This is specifically towards, like, for example, today we're still divided groups. You're talking about groups that are working, movements that are working towards establishing Islam and all, but the hadith itself, if I'm not mistaken, is talking about a political entity, like one unified body under one emir, one khalifa.
No, that's not true. The hadith is saying in the times where there's no khilafah and khalifa.
Yeah.
But all what is there around you is callers to the gates of hellfire. If that's all what it is, then isolate yourself from all these movements. Callers to the gates of hellfire is basically movements. These kufr movements, these disbelieving movements, because they're calling to the gates of hellfire. That means they're calling for kufr, like liberalism and Marxism and communism. So if that's all what you have, and what I'm trying to say is this time actually was there. Like if you take yourself based in the 1920s, in certain areas of the Muslim world, there was no movements that are calling for Islam. Sadly, at least what's dominant is the liberal Marxist socialist movements, nationalist movements, and whatever, pan-Arabist and pan-this and pan-that. There was no Islamic movements at that time because that's a transitionary period where the Muslimin, bit by bit, some of the main Islamic movements that appeared in the 19th century started to be born. And even when they were born in a specific place. The other places were not like that. And that's why this direction from the Rasul Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, in case there's no good Islamic work based upon the Quran and Sunnah, if there isn't work to rectify the Ummah situation that is Islamic and according to the Quran and Sunnah, and everything else, all what's around you is basically people calling for the gates of hellfire, you should never say, well, look, I'm just gonna, since there's nothing else, let me just, there might be some benefit. Rasulullah said, don't. Even if you have to basically isolate yourself on top of a mountain, biting on a root of a tree, and die on that state, you don't come close to these ideological and non-Islamic movements. You understand what I'm saying? But in case there is movements that are, according to Quran and Sunnah, definitely you have to be part of those.
Sheikh, you're talking about, many different movements and all, but the Prophet ﷺ gave clear direction not to join any, groups, right? Like there's multiple groups.
In the hadith?
Yeah.
No. This is what is misunderstood all the time in the translation of this hadith. And wallahi al-azim, I have a suspicion that basically, I don't understand why this hadith is so misunderstood. If you look at the Arabic, it says, فَاعْتَزِلْ تِلْكَ الْفِرَقَ كُلَّهَا. Isolate yourself or stay away from all those sects.
Who are those?
What is those? Those are the callers to the gates of hellfire.
Oh.
It didn't say basically isolate yourself from all group work. That's just it's not that at all. There's no way on earth this could be the case. It says tilka, meaning those. Which ones? He just spoke about the callers to the gates of hellfire.
So there are good groups.
100%.
Okay.
100%. 110 and 20%. And this hadith gets so abused. Wallahi al-azim, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is going to ask those who use it to discourage people from basically collective work, because collective work is one of the greatest fara'id in Islam, because it is tied tightly to the work of al-amr ma'ruf wa nahy al-munkar, which cannot happen without collective effort.
Right. Collective, going back to the Prophet ﷺ, having a collective, the Mahdi having a collective.
Exactly.
It all makes sense. One thing that maybe me as a layman, as a layperson, would think, if you're saying there are good groups, nowadays, when I look around me, and especially on social media, when I look at social media and Muslims are fighting each other, calling each other mubtadi', deviant, innovator, mushrik, munafiq.
Look, at the end of the day, these might not be callers to the gates of hellfire, but sadly, they might have a wrong, let's say, attitude for da'wah. They're sectarian, they're divisive. So, definitely people should think, are these people embodying the Islamic sentiment? Are they really embodying the prophetic method before basically working with such groups, inshallah?
For me, I get scared. You're saying don't go to the callers of hellfire. At the same time, there are good groups, but I'm a layperson, I'm ignorant. There's some sort of skepticism. I'm actually scared to be misled, to be called to the gates of hellfire. So wouldn't it just be easier for me to go and bite onto the root of the tree and just, the end of times is like, it's hard to hold on to your iman?
No, definitely not. Look, it's not like that. Callers to the gates of hellfire are callers to non-Islam, to kufr. Not basically there's no problem with having different groups that have different ijtihad and what is the right Islamic work should be.
But it's scary. You're talking about like innovation. Innovation leads to hellfire. You're talking about shirk. Shirk leads to hellfire. You're talking about
No,
hypocrisy.
we're not speaking about that. We're speaking about basic callers to the gates of hellfire. This is the attitude that we need to let go of basically each group totally bashing the others. Yani we should be able to cooperate in goodness. People will differ. People will differ in things. And who doesn't sin? Who doesn't make mistakes? You know what I'm saying? Like, there's no perfect work today. There's work, better and good and best and so forth, but there's nothing perfect. Even the best, which is subjective, is not perfect. But there's Islamic work and there's non-Islamic work. The non-Islamic work is basically callers to the gates of hellfire. That nobody should touch.
So I'm sure many will find this topic very fascinating, sometimes to the point of fear-mongering. But at the same time, there's still a lot more signs to come. For example, the Dajjal and Isa alayhi salam and Ya'juj and Ma'juj. All these are scary, but there's still, I mean, in our lifetime, if the Mahdi still didn't come, we could be sure that these other ones are still far away. So someone may feel like there is no reason to panic. Would you find that that's a kind of a valid approach at these stories?
No, that's not correct, because the Mahdi will come with Isa alayhi salam, with the Dajjal, with the Ya'juj and Ma'juj all together. Like within the same 1 year, within the same few month period, you'll have at least 3 or 4 of them. And then a little bit after Ya'juj and Ma'juj. So people need to understand, if there's no concern, the Muslim should be concerned all the time, because he might die tomorrow. What have you done for the Ummah? What have you done for the genocides that's happening in the world? You understand?
So even if you don't witness the end of times,
we're living the end of times.
Yeah.
We're living the end of times. No, we're living the end of times now.
Okay, and that should be enough motivation for us to work, because the signs are all, like we said, maybe one day we can unpack on a different episode all the signs that already happened. And it seems like we're very, very close to the Mahdi coming. Something that gives me a better push towards taking action is, even if I don't live to see Mahdi and the rest, at some point I will pass away, just like you said. And I think that's also...
It's a fard. It's a fard to basically work to unify this ummah and to make this deen supreme.
Allahu Akbar. So bigger than motivation. It's actually it's our obligation as Muslimin.
Definitely.
I think that's a good way to end this off. I hope you guys enjoyed today's episode. If you guys didn't watch part 1, we'll put the link on the screen, actually the clip on the screen, or the link in the bio. So make sure you guys tap into that, share with family and friends, like, follow, subscribe. We will see you on the next episode. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.